and welcome to Going Old. So, homesteading or self-sufficiency, as the buzzword is not something that we happened upon on purpose. It was literally an accident for us. Um, we started on this journey in a small way, of course, about 8 or 9 years ago, when we were still living in a little 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of Centurion, not far from where we are now. And one of the things about me is that I really love animals. And I started to come to know about the fact that animals, especially chickens, are, yeah, the way that they are commercially farmed is quite an abusive relationship between the chicken and the farmer. And we were still living in a very small place at that time. We had absolutely no desire to move to a farm at that point. And we decided to get 2 little bantam chickens to give us a couple more eggs for our family at that point. 2 was all that we could have. And we were living, our garden was literally a 20 square meter garden. So we got our first 2 little red bantam hens. And my husband, being the gardener enthusiast that he is, has also started growing a couple of vegetable crops in our flower beds. So we grew some tomatoes, some green peppers, and a couple of lettuces and spinaches, those couple of kind of things. But it was literally a try because we didn't do well back then with it at all. But so we learned. While we were still living in that property, kids being babies still basically, we also built a small aquaponic system. And my husband is an engineer. Darren loves tinkering with things and with growing the vegetables or trying to grow the vegetables. He was looking for a better way to do it. And he came across aquaponics online and decided he was going to give it a go. He built a small system with 2 IBC bins, the small blue ones. And yeah, that helped us grow a little bit better. Our hope initially was to grow fish in it that we could eventually eat. But with our winters getting quite cold and tilapia really being the only option that we had for fish on that small kind of tank, yeah, they really didn't do well in there. They would die every winter and never get big enough for us to actually eat them. So at the moment, well, since then, we basically keep goldfish in our aquaponic system, and we keep it mostly for growing leafy greens and propagating things in. So we still have that same aquaponic system. It's a video for another day, because we've since added a hydroponic system as well. But back then, in our small little flat, that was what we grew. When we moved to our current property, where we are now in a different suburb of Centurion, we were incredibly excited. I was quite convinced that this would be the home that we retire in, because we had about 1,000 square meters of the whole property. There's a lot more space to grow our own vegetables. We could keep a couple more chickens and actually replace our entire need for eggs. And that's exactly what we did when we moved here. We expanded our vegetable garden to probably about 20 square meters, which is considerably smaller than what it is today. And we added 10 highline hens to our flock. The highlines were a great starter chicken for us. They lay very prolifically. They're quite hardy. They don't get sick often. But unfortunately, and I think this is because they were designed to lay so many eggs, they didn't live quite so long. But that's where we started when we moved to what we hoped would be our forever home. We wanted to grow as much of our own food as possible, keep our own chickens, and things really just escalated from there. When we started keeping our own eggs, or chickens for eggs, and started becoming more aware of what goes into our food on a commercial scale, and being a mother who wants to give her kids the best chance in life, it really became apparent to us that the food system is not the best for us if we want it to be healthy. And it was and still is, I think, not affordable to buy only organic vegetables or free range eggs and free range meat and all of those kind of things. And it started snowballing where we had a bigger desire to just be able to create our own food, grow our own food, to make sure that we are putting the best possible thing into our bodies. And it also became an activity that we love. We love gardening together as a family. It is a great way for Darren to de-stress after a long day at work. Having the chickens around is also a lot of fun for me, being an animal lover, and for my children to learn responsibility and about the whole cycle of life, from a little chicken and egg, how it hatches, how the mother takes care of it, how it grows up to reach that maturity level where it starts laying eggs, eventually where your chickens pass away, where they have to learn to deal with that loss and see death in a normal way, was just something that we really, really grew to love. And so our endeavors here on our little suburban plot just escalated out of hand. We built a bigger chicken coop. Our chicken coop has probably expanded itself 3 or 4 times since we've moved here. Initially, our chicken coop was maybe 5 square meters, and then it became 10 square meters. And at the moment, it's about 40 square meters. It's quite a big coop. It is now our barnyard. And our garden similarly has grown to take up about a third of our entire backyard. And that's not including the various little flower beds that I've converted into herb gardens and the fruit trees that are standing everywhere. So we've really come to enjoy being able to grow our own food. And with that, we've learned a lot as well. Where in the beginning, we really weren't able to be very successful. We'd get a couple of tomatoes off our tomato bush, and then it would just die, or it just wouldn't produce well. Green peppers were always a struggle, but my husband's very tenacious and he does something until he figures out how to do it well, and then he's happy. So we have converted all of our gardening into a permaculture structure. We love composting. We are obsessed with mulching everything. We do a no-till structure, and we've seen such a massive improvement in our soil health here, and consequently the increase in the yields that we get from our vegetables. And it's amazing to be able to learn that while we're here. Yeah, on the note of composting, that's also sort of like grown astronomically. We started with just a normal backyard garden compost heap where we would put all of our garden waste into the compost heap, and that's still going. We've got plans to expand that in future, and we'll keep you guys up to date with that. But on top of that, we've explored different kinds of composting methods. Some of our favorites are bokashi composting, and I love that for the simple fact that it doesn't smell. It's a bin that I can keep inside my kitchen where it's already composting, where all the scraps that I'm not going to feed to the animals outside, I can put in the bin. It decomposes, it makes an amazing fertilizing tea, and we can put the solid material back into the garden where it feeds the soil there. We also have done black soldier flies, and our full disclosure, we didn't start the black soldier flies to do composting. We started them to feed to the chickens and quails, but they make an amazing frass, which is a great natural organic compost. We also do earthworms, and the earthworms we do purely for composting reasons. And now we also use chicken and rabbit manure in our gardens. So along with cooking our own food, being able to take vegetables out of the garden and eggs from the chickens out of the garden, that also has a tendency to get out of hand. And we now also love fermenting our own food. So we make our own sauerkraut. We make our own sauerkraut. We like to pickle veggies when we've got an excess of them. We love making sourdough. That's one of my biggest obsessions at the moment, is making sourdough, even teaching the kids how to make their own sourdough, and all the kinds of sourdough, like sourdough bread and rolls and pizza bases and waffles and pancakes and cookies. Sourdough, everything is just what we love to do. And we also like to make fermented drinks. So I keep kombucha alive. I've got water kefir that the kids really love. I've got a ginger bug, which the kids also really love. And then my husband enjoys brewing beer, which is admittedly probably not the healthiest thing for you, but it's fermented food, so it's going into the homesteading list nonetheless. And then a few months ago, I started experimenting with making my own cheese. So I've gotten up to cream cheese and halloumi and feta, and I will eventually become brave enough to do hard cheeses like Gouda and and those kind of things. But I'm not quite there yet. Okay, so on top of growing our own vegetables and keeping chickens for eggs, I was still looking for better ways to source things that we eat, primarily our meat. So in South Africa, buying free-range meat can become really expensive, and we are a family of 6. We've got 3 kids, and then my mom-in-law also lives with us. And so buying free-range meat for us to eat consistently was not an affordable option for us. And since we already kept the chickens, I thought, well, why can't we do broiler chickens? And I also came across keeping quails. So those are what we started with. I actually first got the quails, and I now sell their eggs as well because they are amazingly productive animals, and I highly recommend them to anybody who wants to be a bit more self-sufficient. And we incubated the eggs to be able to expand our flock. And with that came an excess of roosters, which we would then slaughter for our own consumption. The broiler chickens we also did on a smaller scale. I found a farmer or a hatchery that was willing to sell me smaller numbers of chickens because I can't keep 100 chickens here. So we would do about 20 chickens at a time that we could comfortably raise while they needed to be in the brood box inside the house, and then move outside where they would have their own coop. And for the first couple of weeks, we would pasture raise them on our lawn before they get a little bit too big for our tractor. And then they would go and live in the chicken coop with our laying chickens, although separated. So we had great success with that, and we really found that the taste of the meat was so much better. We knew what was going into those chickens, that they were healthy and that they were happy growing with us. And last year, I added meat rabbits to our little farm. And I have to tell you that they have been some of the best animals that we've kept. I really enjoy the chickens, the egg layers. The broilers were a lot of work though. They poop a lot, and you have to clean up after them a lot. And they consume a lot of feed, so they end up being quite expensive to raise. But the rabbits are just such a breeze. They don't eat nearly as much as the broiler chickens do within their life cycle, even though we take them to 12 weeks before slaughter. They're a lot less work because mommy rabbit does all of the growing up until 6 weeks. There's a lot less mortality with them because they've got that mothering figure that's taking care of them initially. And then when it comes to slaughtering day, although it is a lot harder emotionally to slaughter a rabbit, it's a lot easier and more practical to do than a chicken. It's a lot quicker. So we added rabbits. Yeah, so what are we working towards? Because we are seriously running out of space here. We could probably extend the vegetable garden a little bit more, but we're not producing nearly enough food to be able to make a huge enough dent in our food budget and to provide as much as I would like to provide for our family. So our dream is really to move to a small holding just outside the city where we can have a bit more of our own space and our own freedom, and where we can really grow a really good substantial amount of our own food. And that's what we're working towards. And that is also why we started this channel, because we wanted to document our journey to that point and beyond that point. So yeah, I just wanted to give you that little introduction to who we are and what we do. I did forget to mention that we also keep bees. So we keep our bees on a friend's farm, and we produce our own honey. That's definitely something that we'll take to our small holding one day. But yeah, we want some of our own space to have the freedom to do what we want to do. And whilst we are waiting for that with bated anticipation, we're also so incredibly grateful to be where we are here, where we can learn to do the things we wanted to do on a smaller scale, where when we make mistakes, it doesn't cost us thousands of rands to rectify the mistakes. We can learn it on a small scale, perfect our processes, and really decide what it is we want to do, what the systems are that we want to put in place, and what it is we want to focus on when we are able to move it to a bigger scale. So I really hope that you subscribe to our channel and follow along in our journey. We love to share with you what we are doing and what we get up to and what we've learned, and maybe you can learn a little bit from that as well. So we'll catch you next time here on Going Old.